When I meditate, extreme fear often arises in my mind. I feel like I would be destroyed or completely disappear, so I stop meditation because of the fear. I'm so afraid to keep going on, although I intuitively know that bearing the fear would get me closer to enlightenment. How can I conquer this fear? This is, yes, of course, the fear of the person, the personalized sense of self or the ego, which can feel threatened by the arising awareness. And once you know that, you can still meditate and allow the fear to be there. It's only when you try to run away from the fear that really it becomes a great obstacle. But if you can be with the fear, allow the fear to be there, as on a pure energy level, feel the fear, then you will find it begins to dissolve. So rather than not wanting to feel it, allow yourself to feel it. Then this is the beginning of change. If you always run away from it, then it'll linger. There's no change. There's a book called, I think, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, or something like that. But that is quite good advice, although, I mean, not applied necessarily to everything. I'm going to jump off now. But to allow yourself to feel whatever feeling comes is part of the present, the isness of the present moment. So if the fear arises, but then you also realize what is the fear created by a thought? You will know that. Or is the fear arising just by itself in a particular situation when you become still? Do you have a fear of silence? Do you feel uncomfortable when you go into a room and there's no noise in it? Some people do feel. Some people are uncomfortable in nature. It's not noisy enough. So, see, it may be that the fear arises when you become still, you meditate. Then it's not necessarily associated with a thought, but with that arising of awareness. And instead of stopping your meditation, just what happens if I just carry on and make the fear into a meditation? Meditate on the fear. So if you do meditate, nothing really can disturb you. The good meditator incorporates whatever arises in the present moment into the meditation, including the most irritating noise that suddenly starts up outside. And the mind says, I can't meditate now. I need stillness. And then you realize, no, perhaps this is part of the meditation. And how does it become part of the meditation? By allowing the isness of this moment, which is that, by just letting go of resistance, allow whatever it is to be. And if it comes from within, fear, anxiety, you allow that to be. But you have to be careful that it doesn't become a thought, because the moment you are drawn back into thinking, that's the end of your meditation. You can allow a thought to be there, but in order to allow a thought to be there, that implies that there is some awareness there behind the thought, so you are still there. If so, to be able, it's a wonderful thing. You allow the thought to be there. It's very different from being drawn into the thought and following it where it wants to take you. Of course, that's the end of your meditation or your mindfulness or whatever you want to call it. I don't use mindfulness, as you know, because it's not about a full mind. That's why I avoid the word mindfulness. But mindfulness is a lovely thing. It's really presence. So you can follow a thought. It grabs you. It grabs all your attention and pulls you along. That's one way. Or you can realize there's a thought arising about what my ex-spouse did 5 years ago to me. while I'm meditating. And you can allow the thought to arise and be aware. And if you do that instead of being pulled into it, then you will find that it arises and it subsides. So then it becomes very much like the sky. Let's say you have a blue sky and clouds occasionally come. So the clouds are the thoughts that arise in the mind. The blue sky, the vastness of that space, is your awareness. So clouds are not a problem if within the larger context of the aware presence. They come and go. And there might be thoughts that say ridiculous things. There might be a thought about, I'd like to eat apple pie now. I really need to eat apple pie. The might ask the most absurd things to interrupt your meditation. Then you imagine an apple pie you're eating. And then there's the thought of apple pie. You allow that to be. You don't get drawn into the apple pie thought, or even suddenly you have to get up and run to the fridge to see if there's an apple pie still in there. So, the thought arises, you are the sky, that's the awareness, and the thought is what comes into the awareness. Now, if more and more thoughts come, or if you follow one of the cloud thoughts that drift into the space of awareness, one of the cloud thoughts, and you suddenly go, it grabs hold of you and you follow it, then the cloud gets bigger. Then it attracts other clouds that correspond to it. They suddenly come from out of nowhere. And then you are in a big cloud. You're still sitting there trying to meditate, but you're really in a big cloud of thought. And before you know it, the entire sky is cloudy, totally overcast. Now, of course, there's still some light shining through the clouds, but you no longer know where that comes from. There's some light, of course, consciousness. Thought cannot exist without consciousness. Thought is a manifestation of consciousness. But, so there's the consciousness that is behind the thoughts, but you no longer know that consciousness directly, only through the filter of thoughts, in the same way that you don't know the sunlight anymore except through the filter of the clouds. So that can happen. And then that means when you are totally overcast, then that's obviously the end of your mindfulness practice for the time being, because and then you do whatever the thoughts tell you to do. Go do this, do that, must make a phone call. I haven't used Twitter in 1 hour plus. I'm sitting here trying to meditate. It's not working. And you need to know that. So the thoughts, this is a wonderful practice to see that the awareness is the sky. It's not a coincidence that Jesus talked about the kingdom of heaven. Heaven meaning really, this is the heaven. Heaven is the sky. In many languages it's the same word. In French, in Spanish, in German. Heaven and sky are the same word. So why did he use that word? Because it is a very good approximation in the sense-perceived world for something that really you cannot talk about, because there's nothing equivalent in language to talk about it, the inner spaciousness. He talked about really the vast expanse of the sky, to point to the inner equivalent of that as the space of awareness. And The Buddha had a similar term, of course. He just is emptiness, really is vast spaciousness. Out of the emptiness comes form. The emptiness is the one, and the forms come. And then they come back into the emptiness. Emanations out of the emptiness and then back into form. That is, so it's a very helpful image to see that you are the cloudless sky. That's awareness. Your thoughts are the clouds that come. And so when they come, you can allow them to arise. So it's allowing when you're meditating or trying to be mindful, have some practice, incorporate even thoughts, certainly emotions, whatever you feel. That's what you might as well feel it because it's here now. So it's in this case, this person who asked the question, fear arises. Okay. Now, in that situation, you don't really need to work out mentally, why do I have this fear? No, all you need is to recognize there's fear. And even then, when you no longer label it as fear, all that's left of it is a certain energy feeling. You can even let go of the label fear, and all you have is perhaps it's a contraction you feel in the body, perhaps it's a vibration that you feel. That's what fear is. Perhaps if it's very intense, it may be close to a panicky feeling, and you can, maybe it interferes with your breathing, perhaps if it's very strong. And then you bring awareness to that, which means there's a little bit of space around it. There's the cloud of the fear, and there's space around it. And there's an allowing. You allow it. And as you allow it, in the spaciousness of allowing, something happens, a transmutation happens. Not perhaps all at once, not perhaps immediately, but a transmutation happens of whatever you allow to be, because you become more and more spacious. The more you allow what is to be, more and more you find is you are not the fear, you are the space for it. You are not the thought that comes into your head, you are the space in which the thought arises and into which the thought returns. And that's a wonderful sense of freedom suddenly, that when you meditate, whatever arises externally or internally becomes then part of your meditation. Even something that before you would have called disturbing, you incorporate the disturbing into your meditation, and then it's not disturbing anymore. That's a lovely practice. So it's always then better to meditate when you get little challenges in your meditation. The same with life. Because if you didn't get your challenges in life, there would be no real awakening. It's only the challenges that you get that bring you here. You would be a very shallow person if life had not given you any suffering and challenges. That's how you deepen. And you know that. Or you would have such fantastic karma that in your past lifetime you just missed being the Buddha